Friends and neighbors, today, the world of folk music lost one of its greatest performers, one of its greatest writers. At 1:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the teletype machine in our newsroom here at WCKY began typing out a dispatch from Oak Hill, West Virginia. It said hillbilly singer and composer Hank Williams died early today, apparently of a heart attack while being driven to a radio singing date at Canton, Ohio.
Well, I guess you were at the Opry when Hank Williams was fired then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that a big flap at the time?
No, just,
Really?
you know, they just got sent back down to Louisiana.
Yeah. to the farm teams?
Yeah. They'd have brought him back if he'd ever straightened up.
Mm-hmm.
The more successful Williams became, the more his life and his drinking spun out of control. In December of 1951, Audrey had enough. She took their son Hank Jr. and moved out, filing for divorce.
See, when he broke up with Audrey, he said, if you don't come back, I won't live more than a year. And he died on the very day that they broke up a year before, on New Year's Eve. And that's all I want to tell you about that.
That about says it.
Hmm?
That about says a lot.
Well, I think it tells it all.
Yeah.
His family's departure left Williams devastated. By the summer of 1952, he was constantly drunk. Chronic back pain, worsened by an unsuccessful operation, left him addicted to painkillers.
He would never want to go on the stage when he's drunk. He never meant to do that. But the promoters would have a mob of people waiting, and they'd go come drag him down there and put him on stage.
Hank Williams was country's biggest draw, a man who had sold 10 million records in under 5 years. But now it was all unraveling as he spiraled out of control. His wife divorced him, his band quit. Then came the biggest blow of all.
The Opry management told him he needs to take some time off and get his head straight and come back, which is a polite way of saying you're fired for now.
Williams was forced to return to the Louisiana hayride. His songs were topping the charts, but Hank Williams could barely get on stage to perform.
I was prepared to do anything I could to help him, and I tried. I tried hard, but I wasn't enough. I just wasn't enough.
See, Hank was one of those people that had driving ambition. He wanted to get to this place in the world where he was somebody. And he got up there, and there wasn't anything up there. It was empty. Do you know what I mean? It was empty. There was nothing there that he wanted. It was all back down there where he'd been. So he didn't really care whether he performed or not. He'd miss shows and everything because it didn't mean that much to him.
He would tell the audience, he says, well, they fired me from the Opry, but old Bones always closes the show.
When he came back for his first appearance on the hayride, he'd been drinking. And you could tell it backstage, you know. His eyes were kind of watery. And that old black stare that I spoke of, it wasn't there.
Folks, I had a pleasant surprise tonight. An old friend of mine dropped in to visit with me, and I talked him into coming out here on the stage and singing a song for you folks. Now, he says, furthermore, that if you like his singing, he'll come back next Saturday night and sing just all the songs you want to hear. It's been a long time since he's been on the show. Come out here. Hank Williams, the Drifting Cowboy. Hello. Oh, thank you, Horace. Thank you a lot. Boy, it sure feels good to be home, you know it? Been about 2 years since you've been home, boy. You know, we started telling the folks tonight that you would be back here next Saturday night. And I told them just a moment ago, in case you couldn't hear me, that you had agreed to come out and sing one song. And if they liked you singing, you might sing a little bit of another one. And if they liked that a lot, you'd come back next week and sing all the songs they wanted to hear. Is that a bargain?
All night, that's the deal. Yeah, I got one that I'd like to sing that I wrote about Louisiana when I was down here a few years ago at least.
All right.
Little thing called Jambalaya and the Crawfish Me gotta go, me oh my oh. Me gotta go, pull the Piro down the bayou. My Yvonne, the sweetest one, me oh my
oh. Me oh my oh. Fall 1952. Hank Williams' Jambalaya is the #1 country song in America. But country's biggest superstar is reduced to playing honky-tonks in high school gyms. Few promoters wanted to risk selling out larger halls only to have the headliner show up drunk, or not at all.
Of course, we thought he was sick. He had, we didn't know that he had drug problems and alcoholic problems.
I had no idea he was that far gone. His physical condition had deteriorated badly. He was bloating up, thinning down and bloating up. He was taking all sorts of pills, I don't know what kind. He got to the point where he couldn't control his bodily functions, and he'd been known to wet his britches, is what it amounted to, in public and such. And it was hard to watch.
I just sat back and chewed my lip and said, well, everything's going to be okay. Not that I really believe that, but it made me feel bad to see him at a point where I couldn't help him, or couldn't be of help.
In October of 1952, Williams remarried his bride, Louisiana native Billie Jean Jones. They were actually married twice, 2 separate ceremonies on the same day. 16,000 loyal fans bought tickets to see the nuptials, held in a New Orleans auditorium. A new love and a new life seemed possible. But for a man who had sung so convincingly about loneliness, happiness could not last.
No, he never talked about his problems, but you knew they were there. We was coming back, and I was driving, and he was down in the floorboard in the back seat. Billie Jean was in the back seat. He was down in the floorboard, and he was crying. His back was hurting him so bad.
Never did really complain with it. If it get to bother him too bad, he'd go to the doctor, and the doctor take one look, give him a shot of morphine, just like that.
The guy that was supplying him with all the drugs, Toby Marshall was his name. I thought Toby was a doctor.
When this doctor so-called prescribed chloral hydrate, Hank wouldn't take them right. Ever what right is, I don't know. But he would take them by the handfuls. He'd be walking across the stage and he would fall. People would think he was drunk, but he wasn't. He'd lost control in one leg, which, with the kind of back problems that he has, that's very common.
He was always slim, but it seemed like his face started shriveling in. He just kept losing. He didn't eat.
When I saw him, he related to me later on that he had been delving in with this character from Oklahoma City. His name was Toby Marshall.
Yep.
And Toby had gotten him on several different kind of drugs along with the booze.
Yeah.
And at the time that we were traveling together, I thought the guy was an authentic doctor. I didn't know that, he was a quack. But
Toby Marshall traveled with you.
Yes.
You met him.
Oh, he was in the car with me for 14 days, yes.
Okay, we'll hold off on Hank for just a minute. Tell me about Toby Marshall. What was he warm? Was he gregarious? Was he?
No, he was very cold and very businesslike. That's why I thought maybe that he was a doctor. I couldn't figure why. At one minute, Hank Williams would be very straight and very down, and then 30 minutes later, he would be up and very vibrant. And then in the 2 weeks we were together, the only time I ever remember him eating was one time was a half of an egg sandwich, and another time half of a hamburger. And so this guy offered me some drugs too. He offered me some Dexedrine. Yeah. I asked old Toby Marshall, I says, what do you got this guy on anyway? And he said, well, he was giving him straight adrenaline. And even though I knew, even as limited knowledge as I had of drugs at that particular time, I knew that you just don't give a man straight adrenaline
for anything short of a heart attack.
Yeah, that's right. Uh-huh.
So this is where you brought Hank that night in August?
Yes, we brought him after booking him. We brought him in and locked him in his cell right here, this end cell.
And you were on duty that night, earlier that evening, when you got a call from...
yes, we received a call from the Russell Hotel here, a disturbance. Jake Young and I, the other officer who worked with me, answered the call, went over, and Mr. Williams was intoxicated, highly, and falling all over the place, and he and Mr. Blake Chaffo had a scuffle there. So we just picked him up and brought him back to the headquarters here and booked him. We did not know who we had until we brought him in and got identification on him.
Hank was alone, or he was with someone?
He had a lady with him.
And she came down to the prison with him?
No, we did not bring her. We left her at the hotel. We brought him, booked him in. She came later with Bob McKinnon. She was a very nice lady.
Can you show me the cell? Where
yes, right here. We brought him in, and he went to bed on this bottom cell here. We put him in his bed. In a very short time, he was sound asleep. And after that, Dr. Denny, the physician at Avondale Mills, dropped in occasionally 2 or 3 nights a week to check with us, see what was going on. So we got Dr. Denny to come back and examine him. And he checked him over, and he said there was nothing wrong with him except intoxicated.
Who took that photo, and why is he not wearing a shirt in that photo?
Well, that's the way he was when we picked him up. Robert Grays, a local photographer here at that time, was an avid coon hunter, and he was out late at night, and he'd stop by. He and I were very close friends and hunting partners. He'd stop by to see us. Well, after he came in, we asked Robert to take a picture of him, so if he fell out of the cell or something, that we wouldn't be accused of mistreating him in any way. So the man stood right against the wall, right over here by that pipe. I believe that's a steel pipe. It probably shows up in the picture there, doesn't it?
It's hard to tell, but it does look like that is the corner where he would have been standing.
This is right here. That's where the picture was made on.
No, I seen that he was very sick, but you know, I didn't dream that he was going to die. But Dr. Stokes was with him the day before he left on the trip, and he told him and Miss Williams, his mama, I'll always call her Miss Williams. She married again, a man named Stone, but she'll always be Miss Williams to me, Miss Lillian. And doctor won't put him in the hospital. But Hank told me, he said, this is my first show back on the Opry. He said, I'm booked up for nearly every night through May. And I've got to be to Canton, Ohio. I got to go. Last thing Hank told me, he said, I'm going back to Nashville to Audrey and the children. He said, I know I can't live no other place. And
so you think he was going back to Audrey?
Oh yeah, that's what he said now. Of course, she might not have took him, I don't know. But that was in his plans to go back to Nashville. Well, They'd booked him back on the opera, so something was going on.
She thought she would get him back after I met him, but then she just thought wrong. She was just much too old, and she was into big parties and big house, big cars, furs and stuff, and Hank wasn't that way. You would hear that he died in love with Audrey. Well, that's a bunch of crap, you know.
The central figure in the mysterious last ride of Hank Williams was the driver of Hank's baby blue Cadillac convertible. He was an 18-year-old college student named Charles Carr.
I wasn't an expert on Hank Williams' life, but I'm the only expert on his death because I was the only person there. And I'm going to tell you, anybody around, if it doesn't verify it this way, they're telling you the untruth.
Charles Carr and Hank set off from Montgomery on December 30th, 1952. The pair only made it to Birmingham, Alabama that night, a distance of less than 100 miles. Somewhere along the line, they purchased some beer and checked into the Redmont Hotel for the evening. Leaving Birmingham the next morning, December 31st, the two stopped for a time in Fort Payne, Alabama.
We went through Fort Payne. Hank stopped there and got a shave and a trim and a haircut and bought a half a pint of liquor. That's it. And that was the only booze. The Falstaff and a half pint of liquor was the only booze involved.
And the first thing they did when they got to Fort Payne was they went and found a cab and they went and got some moonshine.
Leaving Fort Payne, the pair drove to Knoxville, Tennessee. Deciding that the weather was too bad to make the show in Charleston by driving, Hank and Carr took a plane flight out of Knoxville. However, the plane returned to Knoxville due to bad weather, and Hank missed the New Year's Eve show. At 7 p.m., they checked into the Andrew Johnson Hotel where, according to Carr, Hank went into a convulsive fit of hiccups.
He was hiccuping so hard that you could just see his chest heave. You know, I don't think I've ever seen anyone have hiccups before like that. And this might have been actually something else.
Carr called a doctor to treat Hank for his hiccups.
So I called down to the front desk, and they sent the house doctor up and gave him a vitamin shot, and they gave him, I think it was a vitamin B6 shot, at the best of my recollection, and that was the size of it.
Well, we know that a doctor visited him in the Knoxville Hotel and gave him shots of morphine. He probably had chloral hydrate pills with him. I don't know if we know how many he took.
He didn't have any morphine that I know of, and morphine was not mentioned, and the morphine did not show up in the autopsy.
Shortly afterward, a phone call came telling Carr to leave and drive on to Canton. How Hank Williams left the Andrew Johnson Hotel and what condition he was in when he left is unclear. According to some reports, he was carried from the hotel by a pair of porters.
When they carried him from that hotel room in Knoxville, was he already deceased?
They said when they were carrying him out of the hotel that he was gurgling.
That's not so. He took him out in a wheelchair. He didn't feel like we walked upstairs, and when he got to the elevator, they brought a wheelchair, and he rolled him out in the car. He got up himself and got in the back of the car.
Back on the road, with Hank lying in the back seat, the baby blue Cadillac was pulled over for speeding near Rutledge, Tennessee. The officer who ticketed Carr reportedly remarked about Hank's condition in the back seat.
And that state trooper, you know, that stopped him and said, that man looks like he's dead there.
No, not anything like that. But naturally, you got to know if he said that thought the guy was dead. I mean, he's a grown man, an officer. It wouldn't have checked him out or something like that.
After paying his ticket, Carr picked up an off-duty cabbie to help him drive outside of Bristol, Tennessee, at around 1 a.m. on the morning of January 1st, 1953. According to Carr, he dropped off the relief driver a few hours later and continued on his way to Ohio. By 5:30 a.m. in Oak Hill, West Virginia, Carr reportedly became worried about Hank.
And he was covered with his overcoat and a blanket. And he had his hand across his chest like this. Well, the blanket had slid from Hank, so I pulled over the side of the road. And I put the blanket back on, and when I did, I moved his arm, and I got a little resistance there. And I knew something wasn't right.
Carr drove to the nearest hospital to seek medical help.
I went into the emergency room, and there was 2 young interns back there, and I asked them to come out and check Hank. And they came out and very nonchalantly and casually said, well, he's dead.
29-year-old Hank Williams was pronounced dead at 7 a.m. January 1st, 1953. An autopsy was performed, but it raised more questions than it answered.
In the autopsy report, he had a massive coronary. His heart just exploded.
The autopsy report said very strongly that he'd been beaten up shortly before he died. Where did that happen? There's a story that Hank and the driver had stopped at a nightclub or a roadside stand somewhere, and he'd been beaten up in a fight there. We don't know.
Remember this, had it been any narcotics in Hank's body when they performed that autopsy, it would have been bigger headlines than his death. But they didn't see that because it didn't happen.
No mention of drugs and only traces of alcohol. But I think that the general thought is that they didn't test for drugs in those days, and specifically probably not for morphine or chloral hydrate.
Over the years, investigators have sought to find the true facts about the last 48 hours of Hank Williams' life with little success. Some say he accidentally overdosed. Some have suggested that he was the victim of foul play. Others have even said that he might have planned his own death. If the exact circumstances of his last days remain in question, the uproar that followed his death is very certain.
Where were you when he died? Charleston, West Virginia, and Canton, Ohio. The promoter of that show called me just before Christmas and said, I've got Hank Williams booked in Charleston on New Year's Eve, Canton, Ohio on New Year's Day. And if he does real good, I think he's going to be able to come back to the Grand Ole Opry. Will you do me a favor? And he said, you can ride up with me. But if you ride up there, take your guitar, play behind him, and encourage him. He said, I appreciate it. I said, okay, I'll do that. And I rode up there with him, and Hank didn't make the Charleston date, and we didn't make the Charleston. We got into an icing condition and weather. And so we went on up to Canton and checked in the hotel, and the next morning I got up and had breakfast, and I went to the auditorium, and the promoter, Mr. Bamford, was already at the auditorium. He'd gone over to check the box office and the tickets and all that, and he met me at the door to the dressing room and said, we've got a bad problem. Brother Hank Williams didn't make it. He died en route. Capsized me pretty good. So there went my best friend, my source of income. So I thought, now what? But the show went on. The guy, the DJ who was the MC of the show, took a mic and went out in front of the curtain, and the whole cast got behind the curtain and played and sang I Saw the Light. And you could hear people weeping in the audience when he made the announcement that Hank had died. Some of them had already heard it on the radio, but the ones who hadn't, they just, you know, in awe. Where'd you go? Went back to Nashville and picked Miss Hazel up, and we drove to Montgomery, Alabama. In the city auditorium where the funeral was held, the casket was down in front of the stage, and we were on the stage, the musicians and the singers, Ernest Tubb, Roy Acuff, Webb Pierce, all the biggies, you know, Red Foley. And they sang and I played. And from where I stood, I was looking right down on Hank Williams. And that's the most unusual predicament that I was ever in. I hope I never have to do that again.
The day that I learned he had died, I went home and sat on my bed and cried. That's how I live.
Comes down after you.
The tragic death of Hank Williams Sr. at the age of 29 was shrouded in mystery and contradiction. His funeral on January 4th, 1953, was planned as a fitting tribute to the entertainer who had captivated the American public for what seemed like only a brief moment. The huge outpouring of grief required that the memorial service be held in the 2,500-seat Montgomery Auditorium. Even a venue that size wasn't big enough.
I never seen that many people assembled for a funeral as was there for Hank Williams' funeral.
Present at the service were Hank's mother, Lily, ex-wife Audrey, present wife Billie Jean, and girlfriend Bobby Jett, who was 9 months pregnant with what she claimed was Hank's child.
The funeral was very uncomfortable with all four of those women. The two wives, the concubine and the mother, so his life encapsulated on the front row of that church almost.
You sang at his funeral, I believe, didn't you? Yeah. Yeah. What was that like? Oh, it's his funeral. Yeah. It was just a group of us sung I Saw the Light. Yeah. And, you know, they had an auditorium dinner, and Montgomery and everybody was spread across the stage and sung I Saw the Light at the end of the funeral.
May we do this as Hank would want it done? I'd like to try it. Will you boys take it away?
I saw the light, I saw the light, no more darkness, no more night. Now I'm so happy, no sorrow inside. Praise the Lord, I saw the light.
I wandered so aimless, life filled with sin. I wouldn't let my dear Savior in. Then Jesus came like an angel in the night.
Praise the Lord, I saw the light. I saw the light, I saw the light. No more darkness, no more night. Now I'm so happy, no sorrow inside. Praise the Lord, I saw the light.
Goodbye, neighbors.
I wasn't never satisfied at the time. I thought he was murdered. I wasn't satisfied with the fact that Charles Carr drove as long as he did. He had to know Hank was dead. So it's just not any way the kid, but he was a kid, and I'm sure he was scared. 18, you find a star is dead in your back seat. Then I probably would have got out and run off if I had been him. And he was just a little Alabama boy. But again, too, if I'd have been a little bit older and wiser, I guess I would have tried to stop him.